was amazing.
So unfortunately, you're gonna have to do that all over again.
Oh.
It started recording.
Do you really want to do
No,
that?
no, I'm just kidding. But thank you. The best moments in time are never caught on video.
Man, can't tell you how many times I just like hit the stop record button and the red light turns on. You're like, oh, again.
All right, sorry you have to follow that, Tyler. But
Go ahead.
And that was like, wow, okay, this is really, I have a newfound love for quilting right now, just from
Get you out of
the station. And no, it's ABC all the time. Great. All right, everybody. Well, I'm Tyler Skinner. I'm the founder of two companies, Connected Communities and Women Making Waves. Connected Communities was a hat that I wore and started way before the pandemic. And I love that you brought up the pandemic because I too found the silver lining in COVID. Not at the time, because I'll tell you a little story. I'm a storyteller, so I have to tell a story. Follow along with me. So March 2020. And I'm sitting at downtown Slow, Hotel Slow. Everyone knows where it's at, in the patio, sipping a kind of decent drink from the bar. It's okay. And we have all these planners. We've planned a year's worth of events because we're doing the Slow Film Fest where 10,000 people are coming to San Luis Obispo. And I am doing all of the red carpet events and all the parties. That's my background, is event planning, consulting for nonprofits, doing all these massive 3-day festivals, all these things. Lots of logistics, lots of moving parts. Like you had this to my head most days, like I'm ready to be done, I'm gonna hit the wall. And then I get a ping on my phone. I'll never forget that ping ever, because it said, we're canceling all of your contracts for the rest of the year. And I sat there dumbfounded, just sitting there, just my heart sank. I just lost 90% of my business in a day, a week. And what followed really hit me hard because I worked really, really hard for that. But what I found in that was that my identity was wrapped up in that. So I dug in, I dug deep. I said, who are you? What do you know how to do? You're a community builder. You are an influencer. You like to bring people together and you're a connector. These are the things that you've done for so long, for so many and so many years. You don't have to shift and pivot. You have to build it. So built my own company up, started with social media. That's why I'm here today to talk to you, because I didn't have a website. I didn't have SEO. I didn't have any of those fun tools and things that we talked about in tech. I had social media. That was a tool. I was terrified to get on camera, live, look at things, do videos, do the whole thing. I'm sure you can understand that the first time. You're like, oh my gosh. And I stood there and I remember a friend ripping out my bandage, said, let's go live. And I went, what is live? What does that mean? What does that mean? And you go live and it's in the moment. You have no choice but to be there, be present, be authentic, be you. And from that moment on, I never looked back. So that is exactly how I show up all the time. You get to, like Rob was saying, you get to dress how you want. You get to be who you are and really engage with your audience. Social media gave us the ability to reach a global network of women. And they started pouring in with DMs and comments and everything else, because the content that we were putting out was very relatable. The content we were putting out was very necessary at the time because we were paying attention finally. I was able to slow down from all the craziness and the noise and pay attention to what mattered for what audience I was looking for. And taking the time to do that and be creative and actually dig into what I knew how to do best, be in my zone of genius, is what really brought that to light. So we had women from Ireland and England and all these places contacting us and saying, we want to be part of your community. We want to do a live event with you. We want to go do this online with you. And I didn't even have a clue. So for me, it was building all along that momentum and learning fast along the way. But I had fun doing it because I was asking questions. I was getting curious. I was finding out from other communities and inserting myself in every type of Zoom chat room I could to figure out information. And what I found was that every single person on the planet was experiencing the exact same thing I was at that moment. We were all isolated and we were feeling alone. And everybody wanted connection. So the easiest connection, the fastest connection, the way to do that on a global scale was through social media. It was the quickest, easiest way to deliver something of you. It could be a short video, a snapshot of your day, like what's going on. And people wanted that intake, they wanted input. So I have to say that for me, social media used to be a love-hate relationship. It was really tough for me to engage because I'm an in-person person. This is what I love. I love talking to people, shaking hands, meeting you eye to eye, talking about important things. But social media gave me the opportunity to actually engage in a different way. And one of the things I've learned, I wanted to share, because I've heard comments, I was talking to a few of you beforehand, and I want to make sure that I shared this, is that what we learned is we don't have thousands and thousands of followers on our platform. We've learned to leverage other people's followings to engage on a global level. So that's the interesting part. Engage is the key word that I'm using here. Because as we engage, people engage back. That's why it's called social media. It's being social online. And people think of it like, oh, I'm pumping out all this information. We have a marketing plan or strategy. We set it and forget it. We're putting out our save the date and our event and our new product or whatever. It's building a relationship with people online, which can feel awkward for some. It can feel different, right? But it's commenting on their things. It's actually looking into those communities that are like yours and saying, hey, I like what you did there. How was that? Asking questions, getting involved, going to their webinars or events. So that's how we were able to leverage that on a global scale and get more and more women to come in to our community and see what we were doing, be really involved in what we're doing, and then leverage all of their communities by collaborating with them and finding ways to do online events together or host a panel event where there were several different people and they have 16,000 followers. This person has this many followers. This person has, and they all were watching. We were all tagging each other, supporting each other, and they're coming to us. So all that traffic is being fed to each one of us. We're all helping each other put that web out there on a global scale. That's what we use that works really well for us. And organically building those followers because our followers are engaged. They're loving, they show up for us, they don't just like to like, because that's what you'll see sometimes too. You'll say, oh my gosh, that person has few things. And I want to say comparison is the thief of joy. So you don't compare and say, so-and-so has so many and I don't, or how do I get this? It's not really about the followers, it's the engagement. It's like, who is their media? Like, are they getting your stuff? Are they like you said they weren't actually necessarily buying, it's not from YouTube. It's like, then they're looking at content that then you want to put out. But it's really building that trust with them. So for me, it was just like, it's an aha moment to say that I can collaborate in a digital space, the same way I collaborate in a in-person space, where I say, hey, I like you, let's all get together and host an event. You can do the same thing in an online space. When you have like-minded goals, visions, things like that, you can do that and leverage other people's communities. So I say, get into other people's communities and other people's spaces, start interacting with them, and you'll see like magic happen. That's really the way that I use social media. And now it's just part of our business that we really only do. I don't even use Facebook anymore. So it's really, we're limited to like Instagram. That's where we focus because that's our demographic. So once we knew we used all the platforms and figured out which ones are our niche, we were able to leverage it to our advantage. So I'm very excited to be here. I'm really excited to share. I really would love questions and talk about it more, but no, I don't think I have much more to hear about that.
Thank you, Tyler.
Be super specific, but yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, I got it.
I knew I was in trouble before I got here because I watched Bob's video and I talked to Tyler and knew that I was going to be the second-class citizen up here speaking. My background is in technology. I am a marketing geek from way back. And so my perspective of social media might be a little bit different, but I have two business interests that are involved with social media. The first one is SoftTech, the group that we're here this evening. We're using social media and my network of choice is LinkedIn. So you have YouTube, you have Instagram, and you have LinkedIn. There are other ones, obviously, but those are some of the bigger ones. And the process for SoftTech is we want to connect a community in San Luis Obispo County and northern Santa Barbara County of the business professionals in this area. So my mission out there is to create that group and to create that kind of networking for that, so that we can put our events out, so that we can get feedback from our community, so that we can do these types of things. And right now, we stand, as I checked before I came in here, about 5,500 people in that network throughout the area of those two areas. And there are about 127,000 people on LinkedIn in San Luis Obispo County. About half of those don't really exist, but that's a story technicians can tell you. Elon Musk for sure. But about half of that actually exists. So we're up to about 3% of the community that we're actually reaching through social media at 5,000 people. My second business interest is a for-profit, which is a company called Sergeant D, which is a Army themed t-shirt business. We do specifically that particular area because Well, my name used to be Sergeant D. But you got to go back 40 years, but that's the way it is. So it's 100% veteran owned and veteran staffed business and we got 10 people put together to talk about that. So we own that community and we're trying to own that niche in that particular product area. We have not found the killer design yet, but we are working on building it out. And we have at this point 2 profiles in LinkedIn, one called Sergeant D and the other one called Sergeant Gentry. Sergeant Gentry is one of my partners. She's a woman that was a military police officer for 6 years. And so she represents, and we target in that profile, the women veterans in the United States. In my profile, I'm a business owner. So my profile targets the people who went through the military that then transitioned to be business professionals. So my connections and my targeting is on CEOs and MBAs and technicians and that type of stuff. But the nice thing about LinkedIn, different from the other networks, is that you do have the capability of targeting that kind of stuff. Now, LinkedIn was built for recruiting and employment, and everybody kind of knows that. So it's not the same as a Facebook or any of those networks. So what we find with that is that we can identify our audience. We can talk specifically to them. There are issues that are unique to our community. So we just ran a campaign, for example, of the 10 myths of hiring a veteran, because the veteran community has this problem. People think we all have PTSD. They think we all have war injuries, and some of us do, some of us don't. But there are a number of myths in the industry that make me crazy. And so we went after doing that type of thing in it to push the buttons of people that says, you really need to understand, because we are a minority. The veteran community constitutes 6% of the population. The Army veteran community consists of 2.1% of the community, and the combat veterans constitute some minor fraction of that. So that's kind of where our audience is at. But one interesting thing is that Sergeant Gentry, which is Stephanie Gentry, is targeted at women. Well, LinkedIn doesn't allow you to sort by gender. It's against the law. So how do you think we went and solved that problem? Very good. Well, not a lot of people get this, but most people named Mary and Maria are in fact women. And so, you have to kind of rethink, because these tools aren't really built for all of the challenges that you want to throw at us. And so in that area, the Sergeant D profile is about 2,500 contacts, which we've been working about 3 months now on building it. By the end of the year, we expect to be a little over 20,000 across there, and we'll have 4 profiles in LinkedIn and a couple in Facebook. And so we're trying to build that out so that the entire marketing of the business is organic social media. And so that's my story, and I'm nowhere near the caliber of these two.
That's right. You're in it.
But that's kind of where I'm at, and the reason that I.
Nope.
Yeah. That's right.
You brought up a really good point. Is that sometimes it's like you can't solve these sessions like old tools, right? So it's just throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks sometimes. If you're afraid of things, try them. Try them out. That's where you run to the things that you're most nervous about. I don't know what TikTok is. I was in Clubhouse, all these different things that popped on the scene during COVID. I'm like, what is Clubhouse? And everyone's just chatting in these rooms and groups. And I thought, this is kind of silly. And then once I started getting into it, I saw the value. So it's just finding the space that works for you. YouTube's been successful for you.
Right.
LinkedIn's been successful for you. Instagram's successful for us. So it's really, they all have value. So I just wanted to share that.
The one thing that I didn't say while I was standing up there, because I got nervous and skipped over it, is the point that the two of you made, which is if you go to social media and you are not authentic, actually you are that person. I mean, if you go look at my Sergeant D profile, it is my military service. It's not someone else's. I didn't make it up. those profiles have to be authentic, the communication has to be authentic.
No.
Because the networks will fry you alive if you're caught being inauthentic and just out themselves.
Well, you're gonna be, and I don't want to sound negative, but the more followers you have, the more subject you are to negative feedback as well. And unfortunately, the critics' math in my world is very real. You can have 100 positive comments and you remember the one negative one for a day. And you will create content for months to try to please that one negative commenter to only find out it was a stinking bot anyways, It's just
So basically, it's not about volume of followers, it's about good connections with them, that personal and the trust, and then they tell their friends and family.
And there's two stages to it too. You got to remember, the first one is the connect. Now I'm talking about my network, not theirs, but the connection is cheap. It's easy. That's what I was talking about.
That's a handshake.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's the relationships you create out of it. If you don't convert your connections into relationships, you're going to fail.
And go ahead, Jeremy.
You connected the dots into monetizing, like your social experience, like Tyler and Bob, you guys did, and I want your company sharing, like, where do you connect the dots between what you're doing socially and monetizing?
Oh, okay, perfect. We have a lot of people called lurkers. That's what we call them on social media. You'd be surprised that I host events now. We host retreats and in-person events, and we do virtual events. So a lot of people will be on our social media and they will be following us for quite some time because it's a very safe space that we've created. And so there's psychological safety that has to be involved. And so people will take a while to get into our space. And once they're in there, they're basically hooked for life because they find that that's really what they were looking for. But the lurkers, I've had people come to our events. So that's how we translate into it. They come buy tickets for events. They're being a member of our community. So that's how we've monetized that. We have I'm all about revenue streams too, by the way. We have merchandise that goes towards our programming. We have all kinds of things that we're rolling out this year. So we're constantly developing things. And that's what we're bringing people into that fold. But they'll take a while. And that's why I was going to ask too, is how many of you, when you do business, it's like the know, like, and trust factor. People you do business with. So it's not very different on social. So people want to know you first, the authenticity piece. They want to like what they're seeing, and then they trust you by engaging, buying your thing, purchasing a ticket, getting your quilting product, whatever, getting it following.
Whatever it is.
And then that's a big thing too, is really, you said that and then so many of those. So you go back and if you're going to call in your community, like you're going to do a poll or you're going to ask something, follow up. The relationship building, follow up with that. Poll your community and then show the stats, like show the things they love that they felt like I contributed to that, and then they're posting that. So those are other ways that we engage them to then become organic, lifelong part of our community kind of thing. So they're purchasing all kinds of different.
Which is hard to do if you're spreading yourself amongst all these different social networks. So you really need to take one.
To pick, kind of.
That's sort of what I wanted to tell you a little bit as well, but I was spread around all too long. Even though I do YouTube, I do not do TikTok intentionally. We target from our retail shop mostly through Facebook, because we know through Google Analytics and all of the other kinds of wonderful stuff out there that the majority of our conversions come through our direct email or through our through our Facebook campaigns. And those are supported by having the YouTube, because that's where you got the product. Now you go see the teacher, you hang out with the teacher, you get excited to see the next products and those things. But every 6 weeks or so, somebody, because we have a lot of young employees, will come in and say, well, you know what we should start doing is TikTok videos. And I'm like, number one, that's a distraction from what we're already doing. Even if we are chopping video we've already created, even if I'm thinking in landscape, to chop it portrait doesn't always work because I move too fast and my editor hates me for that, little things. And so if there is investment involved, so if you spread yourself too thin, social media is no longer free because you're spending so much time. So you might have to fish in a lot of different ponds at first, but if you get more hits in one area, fish there. Then we're also starting to talk a little bit about how engagement and the audience with YouTube, the algorithm is constantly changing. And I mentioned earlier, I'm a recovering alcoholic. So technically I'm an addict period. And I chase those numbers on YouTube like I used to chase the six pack on my way home from work. And some days it was great and some days it wasn't, but it was always, you know, I was consistent. I always released the six pack. So when I left the first big company, Man Sewing, and decided, how do I do this now on my own? And found, oh, there's other sponsorship opportunities. Because I think it is my audience that likes me, and I was using this brand fabric on that show, and I'll just go have this brand fabric pay me to shoot videos for them because they don't have social media, and that worked for a while. But then they tried to turn me into something I didn't want to be, and I thought, oh well, maybe I'll try something else. And then I found a company that's apparently, you know, and we're running it. If any of you have looked into this entrepreneurial operating system, EOS. The company that we're working out with 80 employees in Texas is running off of EOS. And that was my big problem as a content creator. One day I get up and I got 5 new subscribers. Wow, like 5 new subscribers, right? And then 2 days later, I got maybe 6. And you're like, oh, it's doing okay again. I don't have any idea what's going on. But now I have 3 metrics that I chase weekly, monthly, annually. And so it's an easier way for me to know, is my quilt not only pretty, but is it also converting? Are we making money in the long run? But that partly is, where do I spend my time and where do I put my energy? And right now it wouldn't be on TikTok, even though I love creating videos, because I don't have an audience there to play it to yet. Or the audience that is there is also interested in quilts. There's that 80-20 rule, and that's the 80% over there that's not spending the 20%.
So you're using the tools from Traction for
Right.
social media.
Right.
Because you're treating it like a business now,
Correct,
when you weren't before.
correct, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and again, you know, like, think of it like fishing or surfing. I mean, I love using surfing as an analogy. You live here on the coast. I try to do it every day that I can. That's why I make videos. It's not every day is a great day to surf, but the more you don't surf, the worse shape you get in. And so when it gets good, then you're not good. And what happened then? And you know, darn it, I missed my cues, and there was no battery in the microphone, and you know, the whole thing happened all over again. We forget to hit record on Zoom. And so the more you do, the more trained you become. What I was starting to say also is, you can't get too focused on the numbers. As long as over the long run, it's like our stock market. It's just kind of ticking up over there. Think of it like a retirement account. Just keep investing in your time where you feel like you're getting your traction. Hopefully that helps a little bit.
Yeah, that's where
What is consistency coming with that? Consistency of effort.
Consistency of effort. I would be the wrong person to
I
ask.
say yes. I think a big person.
I thought you meant like, how do I choose my what's effort to focus on?
Oh, no, I mean, like, you know, when business starts coming in, you stop promoting because you're gonna do the business.
No.
That's what I'm actually speaking about.
Okay, but for me, I had a friend a long time ago that he was my buddy that I consider to be super successful. But we're sitting around his pool, around his nice house down in, you know, Encinitas, and it's like, oh man, I'm so jealous of what you get to do. I'm like, me, really? Are you kidding? But we started talking about, like, man, every time I gotta create all of this stuff, and the minute I walk out of class, it's over. And he's like, you need to get something that sells in your sleep. So that's when I started trying to come up with product sales, mass tools that can be sold in any of my videos. So I have a target product or two that I'm almost always showing. So that becomes my baseline income. That's the groceries and gas. And then when I want to make risky experiments is when I target, like I wanted to, like I said, travel with my sewing machine and teach quilting. I thought it was a great idea. So I first started refurbishing this old sewing machine. People got engaged. Then I started talking on a live video just one day. I'd you like to take it on the road? People like, you should come see me. You should come see me. You should come see me. So I realized there was some engagement there, and that was a free afternoon. So then I thought, well, let's see if it works. I got to test the solar panel and the sewing machine anyways. Let me take a really small project that's considered a grab and go, which we have a lot of travel. The other side of our business, we have cruises and bus trips and all kinds of retreat events. So one of our products is a grab and go. So my whole shtick was, I thought I'd just grab and go this kit today to try out my solar sewing. Look, golden hour is upon us. We've only got 2 hours to put this together. Let's see if it even works, you know, and Before though, when I got hired by this new company called Stitch and Heaven, this where So Well is, said, oh, I always wanted to do a video where I break in to a quilt shop and I spend the whole night, right? Like think about it, sometimes you got locked in REI overnight, right? Like you got the hammock out, the whole stuff, you got the fire going, trying to sew stuff indoors, and don't do that, by the way. So I thought, okay, just wait, so at any rate, I thought, well, break into this sewing store, and in 45 minutes, I took the audience from start to finish on a quilt project, cut close to $100,000 worth of product between the $35,000 online, the $40,000 machine over here, the $7,000, I mean, all the fabric, all the books. Went around, but I filmed the whole thing as a burglar with a black hoodie, and man, in the dark. I make it pretty. You can see it. It was awesome, but so many people in the comments were like, I'm going around, you should get me, I want to see it, you want to see it. Like, this was no good, I didn't get any of that with the outdoor stuff. So that was how my consistency, how I was answering that question, it's like, you kind of roll the dice and it's still Yahtzee, you're like, oh, I'll take these two now and put them back in the cup and go for the, oh, whoops. You know, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but I'm always trying, but always still keeping that grocery and gas product level that I know works, turning and burning.
I love that you did D1 above the Cayugas rack. How did we get to look at that?
It's on So Well, and that's actually on YouTube. It's Stitch in Heaven is the brand that it's under, and So Well is like my channel. When I started there about 6 months ago, we were going to have several channels going because I became a freelancer. They hired me up and said this would be great, but as things morphed and changed, and we realized the energies were better placed other places. The gal who was also filming video became one of the creative directors, and so now I get the video job again. And so it's really fun. It's like a brag, in fact.
No, you should. It's amazing.
It's Jessica.
Tyler.
Kyle, got a question for you. When you first started this, getting out and going into the social media, what content were you offering? What was the draw? I mean,
So we did this, I'm not like, shouldn't say, I might be with the rebel, I love this, right? Because we started in the pandemic, we were actually hosting events, but we were doing them very quietly and intimately outdoors and having things, because what we saw was that people were starving for something, they needed to get out, they needed to purge, and they needed to be there. And so we were doing that, so that's what I started out doing, was talking about the space and talking about what we could offer. So online, we were doing virtual panels for women in various industries that were male dominated, like tech or finance or cannabis. And we were putting out these really niche things that we were like, what's women in cannabis? What's that all about? And what are they all doing in California or Colorado? We want to know about that.
I'm trying to picture this. So you're offering
Yeah.
information.
For women. It's fair.
Yeah, we were focused on women. It wasn't information only. It was videos around highlighting or featuring like their bio, their background, stories, talking about them, and people were connecting with these other women. So like Bob connects everyone here and is going around, this is what soft tech, right, is about too. We were doing that in a social space, saying you should go check out their page, or you should go watch and follow what they're doing. And people were loving that there was that highlighting ability.
Still have no problem trying to get a grip on. You did this in a video domain or just in a typing, a script domain?
Well,
Well, okay.
Let me see if I can put it into words, even though I don't know what you do, but it may not be impossible, even though I'm a male, I'm a fabric designer, quilt maker, which is a female dominated sport, right? So it's not impossible, you might hire me to teach at a retreat and advertise through her social media platform that Rob is coming to teach, and they pay her and she pays me, which generates an income for both of us.
Okay, so I think it's a solitary moment.
There you go. Yeah.
But the other thing I think is deserving a second take at is what both of you said, and that is when you're out there and you are conversing with your audience, you may have a conversation going on between two different people. There are 5,000 people watching them.
yeah,
And so, it is in public, and a lot of people don't realize that, and they make
the wrong comments. Yeah.
There's all sorts of stupid things that businesses do. Someone will get their their nose a little out of joint and make a bad comment, and that will have just as much negative effect as all the positive things that you invest.
Oh, I've watched people burn their social media
Yeah.
platform in 3 words or less. Yeah, you know.
And so one of the things I put out and someone puts out is a default think. So I think it was like, is it truthful? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And is it kind? And if you go by those things, I found that really helpful when we were posting, was all of those things. Are we actually posting that we really do? Are we trying to pretend that we're doing this thing? Are we actually posting testimonials of people? Are we sharing about like behind the scenes? Like all you were saying, people love that. Watching him put together a sewing machine, watching us like devise and time lapse a table, like put the whole table skip together in a vineyard. People are like, how do they do that in 5.2 seconds? They love watching what you're doing on your day to day and all the mishaps that happen and all the things that really go on, the truth, right? And what really happens. So it's like, you know, you take a family picture and everyone's like this the whole time. Did they show the part where the kids like crying and screaming and the flames are going in the background? They don't show that part. So you got to show them. That's what I'm saying is that part of the authenticity for us. Like I often go without makeup on. I'm driving my kids to school. I do a 15-second video on social media now. I'm like quick like that. I can get my message out, tag a few people, and I'm done. And I can do that in the drive-through picking out my kids. So that's an action I've gotten good at it by consistency, practice, and learning my message and my audience and what I'm doing. But I think that's really, I'm glad you brought that up too, because that's what I was really wanting to share. It's like, how are you sharing those things that are not negative, that are not, are you sharing something about you to get people to know your world more and who you are? And not putting those, because it's true, those things will destroy. It's very quick to do.
So let me ask you, can you do social media without a person like basically behind the brand? Can you do it? Like if we're business owners, and I will say that at my age and a lot of the people I know who are older than me, the last thing they want to do is go in front of a camera and start trying to talk to younger people, and they will say the wrong things and they just don't understand how that whole conversation works. Is there anything you can do other than maybe find someone like you, Tyler, to basically find someone else who is like Rob, a spokesperson for your brand? Okay.
Say that, what you just said, literally that.
I don't want to be on camera today. This is terrible. But I am going to tell you guys, we got a 50% off special on this stupid silly machine that breaks it half the time anyways. Forget it. I don't know. I'm done with my 30 seconds. I'm out. That's silly machine landed.
Well, if you talk about David Lynch on YouTube, he basically, that's his, here's the weather today. I don't know if you like, it's very interesting.
It's not it's not pumping out information at people, it's sharing that truth. But like, I don't know how to reach people, this demographic. I really want to bring more people into my business. How can I call out those people? People will respond.
Okay.
And then you really got to follow up with those people and answer. That's why I say it's not a set it and forget. Because a lot of people think, oh, I did my 3 posts a week and I'm done. And that's it. It has to be, that's a lot of engagement.
It's really weird. It's a weird phenomenon because I would like to think, because I don't often want to be in front of the camera. I would like to think that you could have some sort of, I've tried a little wooden mannequin that I dress and take different places. I've tried a baseball hat. I've still got my shoes, you know, so that when I just don't want to be on camera, I can still get that, oh, I'm at the airport on my way to this next wonderful adventure kind of thing.
Okay.
But I do think that people on social media are looking for some sort of interactivity, some sort of engagement. So they want to have, and they want to feel like it's a human or a community or something that they are engaging and relating to.
It's not an ad, I'm not watching.
Right.
Yeah, and it's like, but I think that we might try too hard, and one of my biggest frustrations with social media is it's like the Friday night football reel. It's only the highlight clips of everybody's life. And it creates a huge amount of anxiety, especially if you're trying to keep up. Like think about the Joneses are huge on steroids now, and everybody, you know, just as fast as you can go. And it dawned on me one day as my kids and I were on our way to Disneyland. We love Disneyland. And so we were packed and there's teenagers everywhere. And we're standing, I think we were in Starbucks, right? First thing for breakfast in these 3 teenage ladies were standing in front of me as fast as they could go. Don't break your and they were liking and disliking and shooting somebody. I mean, it was crazy how fast they were going. Nanoseconds you had to stop them. Long as it back it up. Oh, look at that. Again, it was crazy. And that's my process. I was like, oh my gosh. So you're not gonna be able to engage with everybody, but that's what goes back to that focused audience. So if you don't want to have a somebody, have a something, right? I think I can't remember, I should, and it proves to you that it doesn't work as good. The coffee brand, what, you know, was it Black Sheep or whoever, there was a coffee cup that went around everywhere for a while. But I still couldn't tell you what brand coffee that cup was, but I know there's been a couple of chefs that have done the same thing, you know, I could prepare the recipe. So
you get creative.
I'd like to also take a second shot at that question, because I don't use. a lot
No
of-
video on
I don't really
LinkedIn.
use video, I do a little bit of it, but not very much. But my audience is different. My audience are veterans and my audience are business professionals. And they communicate in a different way for that process. So I don't do a lot of video. I don't do, you know, what these guys do with that. And I'm 20 years older than you are. So, you know, there's not an age requirement or barrier there. It's a matter of, you know, thinking through what your communication is. One of our missions is we want to take back the Army veteran public image. We are pissed at news media that tells the poor veteran story and pity this, pity that, and yes, the veteran community has those issues,
It's a minority.
but it's a small percentage of it, and it hurts the other ones who come back and are huge contributors in their community and who bring leadership back to their community and to their businesses and that kind of stuff. So, you know, it's about managing that profile and that image. And so we really do get into things that are not really suited for, you know, 30-second videos, that kind of stuff. Ours is much more.
Microphone you don't have now. That'd been perfect.
Yeah, but it's a platform, Bob. I mean, you basically have a platform, a message that you're building.
Right, you have to have a messaging strategy and you have to think about it. When you do stuff in social media, you are painting a picture. Okay, one stroke at a time, you are painting a picture of what people think of your business or whatever your thing is. So, you know, every time you do a post, it's one more swap on the photo. It takes thousands of those to create a picture. But you have to know where you're going. Otherwise, it'll look like I did.
Brian, you mentioned about substituting spokespeople. iFixit does this great job. Their brand is basically friendly geeks taking things apart, right? And so all the several different people, numerous different people are friendly geeks taking things apart. So there's an example of a whole bunch of, you know, many spokespeople.
Using their community.
Yeah.
Well, Rob is the spokesperson. He's not doing all the parts of that business.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, nobody's doing all the parts of that
What did
business.
you say earlier? I love that. Some of the 3 things you have to have better.
Well, to run a business, you have to have a maker, a marketer, and a manager to be able to put it together. And those things, if you put them all into one person, that person is schizophrenic. And so
So you're saying hire schizophrenics.
Yes.
that helps.
Big thing as well.
But some people are good at that, you know, presentation process, and some of them, you know, he's obviously very talented when it comes to creating a video. I watched his video and I gotta tell you, world's most boring topic for me.
Right.
Not so, but really captivating video, really engaging video, because he's a natural at it. It's authentic. You can tell he's excited about it. And that's what you have to be. And that can be one person on your team. It can be 2 people on your team. I mean, iFixit has, I think, 2 or 3 people that are leads in their videos and stuff. And they do some really dynamite stuff.
Yeah, they reached out to me several years ago. I got a great toolkit from when there's in the sewing machine video from iFixit.
Oh, cool.
But that's kind of what you do though, is you put these networks together so that you have places where you could.
You're
So
bridging those spaces.
Yeah.
So you don't have to have the millions of followers.
Right.
Other people have, you gather all these different followers together. And if you're in the online space together, they're sharing your stuff. You don't know how many things I get a day. I've gotten things because we're women making waves. People think we're surfing.
Right.
I get tons of DMs from people all over the world, Mexico, where they're doing retreats. So like, hey, there's a book called Women Making Waves or Women of the Waves. You should check this out. And I'm like, I'm not a surfer, but I love it. And I start connecting that person who sent me that. And I go, what's that about? And then we start finding out there's all these women trailblazing in different aspects so that they become part of our brand. And that's the thing. And then they get to go on our podcast or we bring them in, tell their stories different ways. And it happens like that a lot because people see the name and they associate with the thing. Sometimes you might think, oh, that's not my audience. We're not surfing. But that it is, we have waves in there. I get it. A lot of people reach out to us every day about that.
Cool. So one quick question, a lot of you have talked about the need to focus, highlight, one or just a few platforms, social media platforms. My question is, how do you know if you're spending the right amount of time or set the dial, how much time you're spending on any one of them? Do you trust their analytics and metrics, or do you have the intuition of your own?
I don't really trust the analytics at all, to be honest with you. The algorithm, you mentioned it earlier, like especially on Instagram for us, the algorithm just keeps going all over the place. I personally don't pay attention to it, to be honest with you, the algorithm piece, because we have our content kind of laid out. So you have your plan, you have like your best laid plan, and then we leave wiggle room for creative and other things we want to pop in, because we might shift gears along the way and say, oh, this thing's cool, we want to highlight this, or this is happening in the world, we want to put this in here right now. And so I don't think that I would follow that to a T. And I think this is such an individual journey. I really want to say that I think that we're talking about these things, but these are things that have worked for us. And it's not prescribed like this is going to work for me, so it's going to work for you and you and you and you. It's not, because it's about your business and your brand and who you are, and whether or not you lead your brand or whether or not you have a huge team that you want to highlight your team. You want to do videos. Sometimes we have a small team, and one of the gals is painfully shy. We try to get our whole team to do videos, and she's like, and I can see her be that way. So I said, you don't do video, you do something else behind the scenes. She shot a video of someone else and used it instead, and it worked out just fine. So I think you have to find what works for you. And I also just wanted to, I think that's so important to highlight, because I think that we're sharing this information. And sometimes I just don't want anyone taking it like this is gospel. This is the only thing that you do, because it's just, we have tried different things and figured out what works. Like I've been on TikTok a little bit. I don't love TikTok that much, but I think it's a cool thing to use and I'm learning it, but I don't love it. And Facebook is not really where we like to play. So just like we did that for a long time. So I think you just have to figure out what's your thing. And as a creator and a creative, I don't know, you obviously are creative, but as a creator, I'm not looking at that. So I rely on other people to talk to in other communities and be like, how do you navigate? One thing a marketing person did tell me that I thought was very helpful was she said, if you could spend 10 minutes a day, like just think about 10 minutes of what you just described, on 10 minutes a day engaging, like find a couple accounts that you're following or doing whatever and engage. And that will be very helpful. And I did that really quick, because if you start scrolling and getting in that world, sometimes it's a rabbit hole. You get down there, you're like, that hour went by 2 hours. I don't want people to waste time in your day. Like that's all you do. There are people that do that for a living, and that's wonderful. But if that's not you, then spend a few minutes a day at least commenting, looking at things, writing personal messages. There's voice notes too. That's another thing that I do. It's very personalized. I send little videos to people and myself. I think all those things really differentiate you when you're trying to connect and do these things in the social media space.
Yeah, and you have to be careful with what you see online. You can actually pay companies to run bots to watch videos so that the view count goes up. So when you see 1 million views, it isn't necessarily legit.
You can buy subscribers.
Right. You can buy
There's a lot of scams out there, and once they find them, so nothing what it seems.
So the subscribers are really.
Yeah.
Well, and sometimes depending on how you're trying to monetize, it may actually be benefit. It's like an investment. It's like, all right, I'm gonna spend $200 to buy a few thousand subscribers, and that's gonna kick the next wave of YouTube into steroids. And and to answer our side of the question, I mean, we are in retail in I think it is now considered $1 billion annual industry, quilt making. So we got a lot of into. Oh yeah, our goal this year is to be 20 million ourselves, and so We have years, the company that I work for started with literally 6 months after Google opened up YouTube. And so they've been around, I think, 11 or 12 years now. 800,000 subscribers are making, the guy Aldone's been all over $100 million clubs and all of these things. And sorry, keeping off track. We can use our industry. So what I was going to suggest for you is maybe best practices of other competitors is where other competitors are already advertising the most, because maybe they already paid somebody to figure it out. Or just, you want to be in that space a little bit too, so you don't get forgotten about. We have an age demographics, we have a lot of different things we can kind of study, but a lot of this we also watch where through our e-commerce, where most of our financial traffic comes through. I don't do this, like you said, having the right people in the right spot, doing the right things, but I got a little nervous one day when a marketing manager pulled up. He's like, oh yeah, well, these are pretty good. The last 48 hours, we've got 36 people to purchase within 2 clicks. Those people are 8 clicks. And you can see this person started on Instagram, then they went to Facebook, back to Instagram, then they went to YouTube, then they landed on our website, went to 3 pages, and then they bought. And I'm like, that's it. I started smacking my iPhone right then. It was like, these little things do a lot, even when you don't ask them to.
Yeah.
So, but you can use them again to your advantage, So I would do best practices to your competition, see where they're doing it, and then see if you get a bigger fish on your line in that pond, and then that, okay, that worked, and then maybe. But the other thing I was going to point out a little bit back to the consistency is the different bait that I try to fish with, because right now I've been blessed to start with this big company. Not as big as the company I used to work for, so they looking at me as, oh, maybe this guy's gonna be our helper that gets us to this next series of numbers, all of that. Well, one of our things, like you said, you had your 3 M's, where ours are our 3 C's, which is content, community, and commerce. So if I show you this rad quilt, but I don't have the patterns or the fabrics to sell to the people that are interested, I haven't really done my job that day. So I don't have my commerce behind my content. I don't have a community to show the content to get the commerce, and so it's that awesome triangle. And so for me right now, we are having growing business. They can't keep up with the product that I'm showing in the videos. So now we're getting a customer service frustration level. So my job is to teach skill building instead of content building. If that makes sense. I'm going to teach you for the next couple of months how to clean your sewing machine, how to clean your iron, how to sharpen your scissors, how to pick fabric, all of those things shy of the kits that we are waiting for, because we just bought one of these giant machines that now will cut the fabric faster than the 10 employees could have cut. So now they'll all fold, and now we have 20 folders. Because that's what I'm blessed to be, like I said, in a company and in an industry that's really moving and shaking. But in order to make sure we don't get the content and the commerce out of balance, so we lose our community, because think about it, most of us will just say, oh, I'll just get that on Amazon, not because it's cheaper, but just we think it's more convenient. We don't even think about the 3 local retailers we drove by on the way home to get on the computer to buy it from Amazon, by the way, being a supporter of local businesses. But that's just one of those things. So right now, I don't want to frustrate my audience, because the next wave of kits I have, the next wave of awesome content, that road trip, oh yeah, there's a whole quilt and a whole series of packaging and monetization that goes behind that. And once I start showing that first video of the campfire, of that little campfire block and the camping quilt, somewhere along the Pacific Northwest, those kits are going to be in stock by the hundreds and ready to sell, and my trip will have been funded. So I don't know if that answers most of the question.
I would want to contribute one extra piece to that, is that these social networks will provide analytics. And I'm a data geek guy from the way back, and they're primarily trash. And what you want to look at is your website and what's actually tracking and what's converting and who they're visiting, what they're reading, that type of stuff where it is under your control. The stuff that's out in the world, that social media is a messy place. We should tell our story.
And one more thing too that people often says is email lists are really valuable. And they look at
Email us.
your email.
and like, what's interesting is social media, here's another piece to use social media for that benefit. Is that we would go through and look at all of our followers and we would say, you're following us at social media, but are you on our email list? Right, and so we were converting people from that and going into other communities and they're coming into ours. And then we're like, have you checked out our email list? So we built up a better email list just by going through and writing personal notes through scrubbing that. I remember talking to a rep at Meta and they were like, that's genius. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's like, it's just me sitting there thinking, right? Do you know what I mean? Thinking about this, like, where are these people? How can I reach them? We want people to be in the email list because that's where we get even more deeper to the content, or they get more clicks to links and get to our website and get on our things and they see more of what we're doing. So the email list is a very powerful tool and you can use social media to drive some of that too. That's what
And it's a backup if something like Twitter happens where
Right.
people spend years building, splitting followings and then overnight
Overnight.
it's gone.
That's what we do. A bunch
It's so
of friends,
scary.
100,000 followers on Instagram and it like their account, they were freaking out. Like that's things, if that's everything you're doing,
Dangerous. Yeah.
it can be dangerous.
So when it comes to consistency and finding your niche, have any of you found a magic number of engagement? Like how many posts do you do on social? How many emails do you do like in the span of a week or a month? What's the magic number that you three each have found for your targets?
Magic number is understand your audience and don't be a pest.
Right. Yeah.
You can overdo it, you can also rush it. And if you don't do it often enough, and especially this goes from the email list stuff, is if you don't use it often enough, it gets old and damaged. And if you do it too often, it gets old and damaged. So it's a sweet spot and you have to understand your audience. If you send someone something without specific value for them, you are spamming it out an email. And so you have to understand your audience. We do the software email list has got 1,500 people on it. And we've had that, that's been as high as 2,100 over the years. But it really boils down to not abusing it. Use it for something of value to those people.
I think that the email list, just to give you numbers, so we send out one newsletter a month, maybe two, depending on what we're doing that month. If there's certain events or things you want to highlight or workshopping, but again, not overusing that. And we have probably a 65% open rate, which I think is really, really good. So people are opening and reading the emails, which is really, really great for us. The other thing is we have then on social media, we do about 3 to 4 posts a week on average. And then once we'll pop in some on the weekends, we have like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So that's our plan, right? We have like a month out plan of this is the content we want to work on. This is our theme of the month. This is kind of what we're doing, all the different things. So we have some sort of strategy around it. So we're not just all randomly popping things up because we all would go crazy. And then we have with stories, because our audience follows our stories more often, we're continuously putting the stories on, which if you don't know what story, how many of you know stories? I just want to make sure I'm not everyone who doesn't know what stories. Yeah, that's good. So on Instagram, they have like a little you're saying the highlight reel, but that's kind of the idea. The stories are what you follow in instance, like moments. So I just did one when I walked in here today.
You scroll anymore. You can just watch it.
You can just watch.
This was hard before.
That was like TV.
TV. So the stories are quick spurts that you could maybe share that give you a little more peek in. So the things that you post on the actual feed, you may not put into stories, or you might put a version of that in the stories. The stories are like your day to day, like what you were saying. I'm fixing the sewing machine. Oh my gosh, I like my kid just like knocked over the spaghetti, like whatever's happening. People are getting an idea of who you are, like day to day life, like what's happening with your brand. And then
And it's only up for 24 hours.
And it's only up for 24
That's
hours.
what's weird.
The whole thing is sometimes you're like, that's gone tomorrow. You know what I mean? And if I didn't really want that, so you can actually curate things like music to it and put different things. And that's what you're saying. You're watching a little reel video, and those are kind of fun because those can be easy, quick ways to engage. Hey, everybody, how's it going? Want to share this? Want to do that? And
But you can have live links on the stories so that
Yeah, you
if people do want to learn more, they can actually click on it and go to your website.
correct.
So stories are better than posts.
And I get a lot, that's why we get more engagement with our stories sometimes than the posts. Like our posts are more content driven, they could be inspirational quotes or like we're highlighting or featuring.
It's more like a
someone.
web page.
Exactly. And the story gives the people more engagement with our community.
And I know that the company Kitchen Heaven pays a fortune monthly for what constant contact or MailChimp or all those things, because they're constantly managing. We're always talking about how to reduce the amount, because we send out a flash sale in the morning and a midnight special in the afternoon, and we've got a weekly. So what I found that this company is doing fairly successfully is they're using Facebook groups, because again, back to our quilting audience, a majority of them are still most engaged on Facebook. And what I didn't understand by doing groups, kind of like the story is, if you've joined a group, then when you go to Facebook, the group is going to have that post there for you. Whereas if not, it's my way of hopefully ensuring that you see more of my stuff, because you already asked to be in my group and I said, sure, you could be in my group. So it's like your Instagram stories, the more of those stories you follow, the more they post of those story presenters. So it's kind of back to the engagement thing. So our email is out of control, but we find that our best engagement really comes from those Facebook groups. And I think you also might want to look at think about scalability for your company and dollars for donuts in the long run, like, because once you get out for that 100 people on your mailing list, it starts to cost, in ways, and how many emails and how many can you do in a month? So that might be part of your sweet spot, is in my budget, I can do this so much, and for me also, I, as a quilt artist, am always looking for new things to do to express myself artistically that doesn't have to earn an income. But then I became, so one of the things I like taking pictures and making the videos, but then I became my own cameraman and editor a while ago. So I have this DSLR that just fits in my hand. I love, it's a Canon camera, it's got a lens, it does the stuff, makes great videos, almost everything I shoot on it. Not real friendly for just stories. I can shoot a video, I can turn it sideways, I can edit it down for a story, I can make another reel, I can do a YouTube shorts with it, but it's like, most of these content want to be shot on that platform. They want to be, so partly again, depending on if you want to multi-stream or if you want to just go target platforms, might be partly, or how you handle your technology. I got some people asked on a really fun shoot. I took all these DSLRs with me down to Peru, film a bicycle ride over the Andes Mountains, and by the second day, I was using my iPhone for almost everything, because the lighting changes, on manual DSLR, or even for video mode, you start constantly messing with filters and lenses and all that. And I was like, oh, look at the iPhone. It's great, doesn't it? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, I thought I was going to have live links down there, and I didn't. I paid for the subscription, but look, I can record my video, and then I can get in a hotspot, and I can still send it in. So I give it down. So to answer the email question.
Let me ask, so the folks on Zoom, this is your one opportunity. I apologize, we didn't clue you in sooner. Jessica or anyone, unmute yourself if you've got a question. And if you don't, no problem. But let me give you 1 second, since it takes a second. And I'm sorry for cutting the video feed, but it wasn't working.
Jump in, are authentic. You'll find where not necessarily the analytics point you to put your energy, but where people are giving you feedback and they're interested and they're saying, hey, what have you thought of this? And they're engaging more. Like I've had 3 classes rise to the top of 14 different classes I teach that are the ones people keep coming back to. Yep. So yeah.
Well, my customer doesn't want me to have their logo on my website. They don't want me to tell anybody about the coolest thing you can do. It's difficult when I make marketing for social influence. I just, I can't say which did. I can't show you. I don't track of it. So I try to do it by making good on the stuff that we can say.
Yeah.
And hopefully that reverberates. I'm doing something for Ball Aerospace.
Yeah.
And I let that kind of that to somebody walking on a metro station for that. It's a strange.
Can you offer stats and things in the industry as a whole? Can you talk about it in general terms and say, is there something like that you can talk about to your audience that are the aerospace audience, that
Well,
without
that's the
saying,
other thing is that the generational differential. Now we don't want engineers or having participation thrown into a soccer team. They never want. And they think they know everything, so they go to YouTube and find it out.
And they can actually build it themselves. Yeah.
So. You're kind of just trying to navigate this. To me. More. You know, I have these groups on, we follow each other. And now, you know, why did do it? And then for it. And I think we'll have to comment on that. LinkedIn could be. And it is if you stay within your group, but in some inside groups.
Yeah.
And I'm in some really nerdy groups. We're in class.
That's cool, like, like, that's like a thing now. It's come back, all of
Right, I
it.
mean, you're so far out of fashion in the back.
You're back. When I started seeing vintage toys, I was like, oh, vintage, now it's already there. Thanks.
But I do a lot of work in the LinkedIn side, and what I would say to someone like you is, you're right, you can't go breaching security because they'll throw you under a rock somewhere. But what you can do is gather up those individual people, not groups of people, individual people, because your business has always been based on relationships with key people, right? Okay. This is another way to talk to us. And you don't need to have 50,000 or 250,000 followers. You need to have 75. But they need to be the right 75. And so you want to be very careful about instructing your audience to make sure they are exactly qualified for what you do, because otherwise they won't understand your customers. And then only talk to that guy.
I think he had a question earlier. Did you have a question? You had your hand up there.
I have questions just generally for the whole team, because when I was on LinkedIn, you have like a lot of Instagram, you have a lot of YouTube. They really talk a lot about, you know, I own my mailing list, and that's a very powerful medium. You just can't modify this kind of things like that. How are you able, addressing across each platform, able to get the conversion of somebody that just is that loose follower to actually engaging to the point where they're willing to give up that email address? You know, like what, you know, just kind of give me an idea about engagement there, conversion on that, et cetera. From each side, LinkedIn might be more like on the broadcast, et cetera.
On LinkedIn side, specifically for software, which is the only one that we do this for, is when we get a new connection, we ask permission to use the email address, and if they give us that permission, we add that to the list. But we don't just pick it up and use it.
Right.
We have to ask for it and get permission to do that. Otherwise, we end up with trouble. But we get about 50% of the people that we ask to connect to will say yes, and about 50% of those will give us permission to use the email address. But remember, we're only targeting people who are in San Luis County. My connection to them said, I'm building a network of business professionals in San Luis County. And, you know, and my purpose is to help people connect within our business community. And if they buy off on that message, that email will be good. But, you know, it's a grind. There's no two ways about it. There are some times when there's just not enough coffee in the world.
Yeah. I think for us, it's really about, for us from Instagram and conversion, is what I described earlier. Like we go through and we actually ask people to be on. We have like giveaways or things like we do fun games or engaging things, get people to come on and say, you have to, in order to get this link, because we do hybrid events also. So it's like, in order to get this link, you have to be on our email list, or you gotta be, to be in the know kind of thing. And I think that works really, really well, because then people need to get access to those things. They're like, I want to come to that, but I want to give you the email. When we ask, like you said, we ask politely, we share honestly what we're using it for. And we're very truthful about how we use it, because I think I get spammed all the time. So for me, it's very annoying. So being on that other side of it, I get the feeling. So it's just telling them over and over and over again, we're not going to use this for this, and be super clear. And then really following through with that, like actually doing it, because those people then tell others and they're sharing them with those other things. At events, we collect emails. So we do it a bunch of different ways to collect our.
Well, and one guy that got my email on YouTube, which I normally would not have given, he said that I'm going to be giving away my book for one day only.
Yeah.
And if you want to be notified what day that is, send it from an email now. And sure enough, because you weren't going to find out unless you're on the list, and it was one day. And sure enough, he sent it out and I grabbed it the one day it was there and then I unsubscribed.
Works.
But
Urgency, sometimes it's exclusivity, sometimes it just depends on, like, you want to be part of our special VIP, blah, blah, blah. And you need to have that. People do all kinds of, but again, it's very personal.
We have a internet and ebook that has quilting patterns. You sign up for the email list, you get the quilting patterns. We also then play on scarcity, which is we have daily specials. And so whenever I'm talking on a live video, I talk about, don't forget to sign up for the email. Sorry for all of you who tried to get the iron last week, we sold out so quick. So I start mentioning that soon my video kits, oh gosh, sorry again, folks, I now come on with some of my live videos. Just want to let you know, we just got these back in stock. I know that we had a bunch of you on the waiting list. Whether it's true or not, I got 6. I mean, tried to move them for a year now. He's like, but nobody knows that at home, right? And so, what we also have with our retail purchases, like a lot of places, my wife's like, how do I get up on 40 different email lists? I'm like, because you bought 40 different things last month from different companies. So the bottom of those are always like, you have to choose to not be on the email. So on the email side of things, that's how we get so many emails in, is we promote, like you said, the scarcity and the community. Rob is fun. You want to be doing the things he's doing. You want to have the fabric when he starts doing it instead of having to wait until it's.
Yeah.
So that's how we build our stuff pretty quickly.
all right, one more question because we're over. You guys, they're not leaving, although they're off. Look at 7 o'clock, so you don't have to hang around. But we're definitely over the time, so maybe 1 or 2 more questions. I'll come right back to you. Did you have a question? Yeah. All right.
Do you guys have used at all customer management software or websites and so on? So
Like tool, do you use specific
Yes.
tools?
Yes.
track.
Yeah. Yeah, we have like, well, I do my little KPI tracker. Like, it's kind of archaic in that way, but it works for me. Yeah, I don't have like an actual software. I use my own. It's like a special tracker that's almost like an advanced Excel, but it does its own cells. So you plug things in, and I just use it that way, like how many visits, how many things. So we kind of automatically it feeds to that. But we're not using a special CRM software.
And Stitch in Heaven, the monster company that I promote, runs off of Shopify. And so that gathers all that stuff together. But then, for anybody that's, like, okay, I just want to start something up. I just did mine with GoDaddy. And I don't take the time to look at the analytics because I don't want to actually compete with my employer. So I have a robopel.com that is just kind of sad, the same things that I showed you here are there, but at the same price that they are from her, so it's just an advertising space in case I ever get a job overnight, I can turn that engine back up. But I'm just on for GoDaddy and it gives me all kinds of like cart recovery options and all kinds of stuff, but it doesn't cost very much and they didn't really support it tech-wise, so you can build a pretty, off of a lot of those pretty basic platforms, I think. But second, you just gotta put in the time.
And Bob, you don't use any special tools, just Google Docs, use Google.
Well, I use a lot of analytics and I have a lot of tracking the
Yeah.
spreadsheets that I keep for what my performance is of all the different key metrics. And, we track it through WordPress and Commerce. That type of
The built-in stuff.
We do track it, but nothing, there's no secrets on this. It's just readily available.
And by the way, a tool is only as good as its user.
Right.
Like trying to always give me these special tools for event software and all kinds of things. And it's like, we don't know how to actually use it, or a team doesn't know. And we're sitting here all trying to figure it out. By the time we get done with that, we might as well just use what's been working for us, or what we like set up an Excel spreadsheet or set up a Google Doc because it works better some days.
All right, well, we went long, they'll be available. If you didn't get your question answered, you got to talk a little bit more, come back up, but thank you guys. Thank you, Zoomers. You guys have a good night. Appreciate you being here.